Now, before they adjourned, the legislature did balance the budget, overcoming a $9 billion deficit. But critics argue the budget was balanced by cutting billions from education and health care and by using one-time federal stimulus money. So was the session a success or failure? We decided to find out what a couple of newcomers thought. Senior producer Ethan Morris has this report on the legislature through fresh eyes.
Reuven Carlisle is a Democrat and a businessman from Seattle. Mike Hope is a Republican and a police officer who works in Seattle but lives in Lake Stevens. For their differences, they have one thing in common. They're both members of the Washington House of Representatives. New members, in fact, part of the freshman class of 2009.
Overall, I think it was really positive. We came in with a great freshman class, 16 of us, 8 Republicans and 8 Democrats.
Both Carlisle and Hope are political newcomers.
Fourth order of business.
Examples of citizen legislators, people with regular jobs, families, and other commitments, willing to sacrifice a few weeks or months every year to take part in state government.
When I first
So was it what these rookies expected?
The pace caught me off guard, you know.
It was chaos. I mean, it was just a ton of work.
It's a very fast pace. You have your meetings set up.
7 a.m. working breakfast with staff.
And every 15 minutes, somebody else is coming in your office.
Just working through what was going to happen that day, policy issues, the politics, all the way through a working dinner.
By 8 o'clock at night, you've seen so many people, you don't remember who you saw at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I mean, it was just a long, long journey.
Another unexpected frustration for Carlisle was time away from home.
You know, being away from the family was the hardest part of all. I was down there the whole week and would come home once during the week, like on a Wednesday or Tuesday night, and then on the weekends, except the last weekend or so where I had to stay down there. So it was tough. It was hard work.
For Mike Hope, his biggest frustration was how long it took sometimes to get things done.
Towards the end of the legislative session, I was surprised at how slow things became. You know, it was a lot of hurry up and wait, especially the last 3 weeks. We were looking at bills. We would go into caucus and talk about these on both sides. Republicans would and Democrats would. And you'd come out and you'd vote on one bill.
We will have a Republican caucus as well.
Then you go right back to caucus again and you're there for another hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I think that was probably where I became a little frustrated, where I saw some of the inefficiencies of government, because I think that many of us already knew how we were going to vote on some of this legislation.
The ponderous process bothered Carlisle, too.
You know, government just operates on a different time frame than the private sector, certainly the entrepreneurial community that I'm used to.
If one issue dominated this legislative session, it was the budget. Lawmakers overcame a $9 billion shortfall by cutting about $4 billion from health and education programs, and made up the other $5 billion with one-time stimulus money from the Obama administration. Carlisle is satisfied with what they accomplished.
At the end of the day, we got a lot done. We passed those 3 really important budgets, and we did so in a way that I think does uphold the core values of people of Washington.
But Hope worries the state is just postponing the problem.
Overall, we're in trouble. And in 2 years from now, we're going to have to look at the budget again and think, okay, well, we patched things up with the $5 billion one-time money, and it's not going to be there in 2 years. So what cuts are going to have to be made then?
With Democrats in the majority, some Republicans complained after the session that they were shut out of the process. What does Mike think? He doesn't feel left out, but tells this story about when he and other Republicans were given their first look at the budget by Democratic leadership.
Here we go. We have that operating budget, less than 24 hours to go vote on something then. And if I remember correctly, it was a 515-page document. And there's just no way that you can read 515 pages in that short period of time before you can make a proper decision to vote on something like that. And I'm not going to say that that's a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. I think there were several Democrats on the floor as well that had not seen that budget until the same time that I did. So that was a leadership problem.
So what overall grade do these tender feet give themselves and their associates in Olympia?
The fact that we're getting called back for possibly called back for a special session, knowing that we had the slowdown in the last 3 weeks, and I think some of the things could have been done, I'm going to probably give it a D.
Overall grade, I would say, would be a good solid B. There's a lot more we could have done, and I don't mean grade inflation B. I mean a good, strong, legitimate B.
Both Reuven Carlisle and Mike Hope were successful passing their own legislation during the session. Carlisle passed a bill allowing students who take courses at technical colleges to transfer credits to four-year universities, while Hope was the driving force behind Eric's Law, a bill to protect children by enacting harsher penalties on child abusers and prevent convicted abusers from working with kids after their release. Joining me now to talk more about the legislature's accomplishments, or maybe not their accomplishments, but their failures as well, is SeattlePI.com columnist Joel Connolly. No special session, Joel. What do you think about that?
A wide variety of grades, from A on civil liberties to perhaps D on education to perhaps a flunk when it comes to talking about how to reform the state's unjust tax system.
They had a thankless job in trying to fill this $9 billion budget deficit. And one of the things that you said in one of your columns, but you wondered why Washington's dominant Democrats have undergone some kind of life change. What do you mean by that?
I mean, they're actually acting like Republicans in the sense of cutting and cutting and cutting without taking a look at, I hate to say this in the world of Tim Eyman, possible new sources of revenue or possible adjustment of the tax system in the state so that it does not penalize those at the low end of the income scale and does not essentially crash in terms of revenue right during times of recession when government services are most needed.
Do you think it's time that we really take a hard look at our tax structure here? We have this sales tax structure. Everybody knows it's regressive, but we don't want to talk about a sales tax, but an income tax. Everybody's afraid of that.
Everybody is afraid of talking about that. At the same time, however, Washington citizens often want more services, better pay for teachers, smaller class sizes, more training in math and sciences so people can adjust to the new economy. You essentially need resources to be able to do that. What the people do not want is a bait and switch system whereby we'll cut the sales tax a little bit, impose an income tax, and then jack the sales tax back up so that essentially it's a double whammy on both the coin purse and the wallet. There need to be some statutory guarantees in terms of what gets cut and what is limited. But I think in those circumstances, you know, we should at least have a discussion in this state as to what type of government, how much, and how pace-setting a government we want.
And the governor, how do you think she did? Actually, she played a very low-profile role in this session.
Chris Gregoire has always been up front and out front on issues ranging from the Hanford agreement with the feds to the tobacco settlement to the Puget Sound cleanup. Again, a little bit more in the background, and she herself has made absolutely, as Richard Nixon used to say, perfectly clear that she's not going to spend her political capital on an income tax or even a discussion of income tax, remembering what happened to Dan Evans and what happened to Booth Gardner when they dared think the unthinkable.
All right. Joe Conley of SeattlePI.com. Glad you're still writing. Thanks a lot.
We're still alive.
Okay.